Pikmin, the first game in the series made for the Nintendo GameCube. The game where you crash land on a strange planet and have to use the little Pikmin in order to survive and get back home. The game ended up selling 1.6 million copies, which is pretty good for the first in a series, and I have to say, it's a great game. Now, we already covered the second game of the series on the channel, and it had quite a lot of unused stuff. And as expected, the first game also has loads of scrapped stuff, like enemies, areas, and models. So let's get into it, shall we? There are half a dozen unused areas on the disc. Some are test maps, while others were used in pre-release trailers. Only their models and collision data remain, so in order to access them in the game, we had to replace an existing level. The objects, music, and other properties will belong to the original level, so not everything is there. First up, Route. This one is believed to be a prototype impact site, due to them being very similar, right down to the paths the Pikmin take when carrying stuff to the onions. The slopes have odd textures, so they probably cleaned it and perfected it a bit so that they could use it in the game. Nothing too special. Next, Anim Test and Code Test. This one was a bit weird, but it seems to be some sort of model viewer map, and it doesn't have a floor. At least no floor texture since it's black. Overall, we think it's a bit confusing and buggy, so let's leave it on a model viewer and an overall test-related map. E3 Play 3. Also known as Play 3, this area resembles both the impact site and the Forest of Hope. It was probably used for an E3 conference, and after that, it wasn't seen again. So this one was mostly used to show off the game and as promotional material. Map 6. This area appeared on an old commercial. It resembles the Distant Spring a bit, but with unused textures. There are no borders, so carelessness will lead to falling down the abyss. It was probably used in a commercial and dumped after that. That's most likely why there are no borders. It didn't really matter. However, it could also be that they later turned this into the Distant Spring, since they look quite similar. However, we're not sure of this. Play 4. It seems to be a test map. This one has slopes and textures, and there's also a helicopter parking, which is pretty interesting. Besides that, there isn't a lot to say about it. Shape Test. Probably another test map, with other unused textures. There are placeholder textures, strange bottles, tin cans, and some nice realistic mountains on the level. They could have at least used those. They look really good. But overall, it's just a pretty basic level for testing. Test Map. Now this is a classic map, but it's pretty different from the others. There are slopes of varying degrees, some bridges, some holes, some ladders, some curves, and even a semi-puzzle inside it. This was most likely a map to test all these features, since these tend to be the buggy things in a video game, so it would be logical to properly test those separately. We have seen this in loads of other games like Banjo-Kazooie. It's just a standard thing.
Tuto number 1. There are holes and a huge area to explore. Analyzing the name of Tuto number 2 and Tuto number 1, this probably was to be a 2-player level. Somewhere in the creation of Pikmin 2, there was an idea for creating a co-op. That's why on many levels configurations, there is a 2-player configuration. However, this feature was scrapped for unknown reasons, maybe because they were running out of disk space, since the small disks only had 1.5 gigabytes of space. Another option is of course time, the bottleneck for many plans in life. And the other level, Tuto number 2, is according to the game files an opening level for the 2-player game. Yet again, more traces of the fabled 2-player mode. Now, there were also some unused models of things seen in the game, and also completely different stuff from other games. First, Kuribo.mod. Kuribo is the Japanese name for Goomba, the Mario enemy. It is very similar to Koog, an unused enemy in Super Mario Sunshine. And there is also a very large model of Mario in the game under the name of Mario.mod. This makes us wonder, might there be a connection between Pikmin and their favorite Italian? Were they planned to add him into the game? Well, both of them are probably leftovers from Super Mario 128, a game that was planned for the GameCube but later turned into the game Pikmin itself. The reason for the same Kuribo model to appear in this game is a hint that both games are based on the same engine. But there was also another interesting scrap model in the game, but this one wasn't from the Mario series. The Door.mod and Key.mod. Both of these models are located in the same folder, and as you could have guessed, the key would most likely be used to unlock the door. Now, what they're planning with this is unknown, but if you've ever played video games, which I kind of expect you do if you watch this video, then you know that these can be used for a lot of different purposes. Now, there was also an unused enemy in the game, and it's a bit of a strange one. Iwagen. In some test levels, there is an unused enemy with this name. It's a combination of Iwa, meaning rock, and Gen, short for generator. It appears to be a rock-spitting vase, like the armored cannon beetle. It has no health counter, and its only animation is for shooting. So maybe this was an early version of it, or a normal enemy version, since the armored cannon beetle is a boss. However, it looks far from finished and as ugly as it could be, so we think they scrapped this one a bit early. So as you can see, Pikmin has some weird stuff in its files, and while you're here, be sure to check out the one we did in Pikmin 2. And don't forget to hit the button in the middle to subscribe if you haven't already.